So what's your take, Tushar, on when you hear Mr. Boris Johnson saying, people, you've had your time off, get back in the office, or you then hear the CEO of WeWork say, if you're not coming back into the office, you're not an engaged employee. And there's all kinds of rhetoric and narrative around this debate. What's your take when you hear people like this come out and make comments like that?
I find the government's messaging of get back to work incredibly patronizing, and it seems to, I guess, come from a place where work is a place you went rather than something you did. And I think that's where the messaging comes from. And maybe it's part of the generation that's currently in government at the moment, or where their strategy is coming from. But if you think about it on the face of it, I've never seen the levels of innovation that we've seen as a human race in the last 14 months in such a short period of time. I've never seen that level of innovation. The amount of businesses that we've seen pivot, the amount of businesses that we've seen do something completely different to what their business was before in order to survive COVID, whether that's a pub trying to figure out how they're going to be a really high volume takeaway service, right? Or whether that's a travel business trying to figure out how they can become a SaaS platform. And whether that's the three largest pharmaceutical companies in the world creating a vaccine in 10 months, that typically takes about 10 years to create, right? And on top of that, you've got entire governments that we've been dealing with an unprecedented crisis that no one in government has ever seen. And most of them have been working remotely too. So I don't like, and I don't think that the government is going to be successful with a message which says get back to work. I can understand why they say it, and but I think I think words matter, and they should pick the right wording. And fundamentally, the government has got a lot of agendas at the moment, right? So one is the Build Back Better agenda, which is all about economic recovery. The other agenda is the Levelling Up agenda, which is all about making sure that regions outside of the Southeast and London can see the same levels of economic growth as London and the Southeast. So actually, they should be using flexible working and the ability for people to work flexibly or even in a hybrid way to actually achieve those outcomes. Because if the government is promoting that message, then you're essentially encouraging London-based companies to hire non-London-based staff, and they don't have to move to London and incur, the high living costs of being in London. And that money goes straight to the regions, and they spend that money in the regions, and that starts to regenerate that region without companies having to build physical office spaces there. And also, flexible working increases the level of employment in the economy as well, because many people fundamentally, there's a market failure in matching supply and demand with respect to jobs, because there's something blocking that person from being able to have that job. Perhaps it's a recent mother who, they've finished their maternity leave, but they want to work from home 2 to 3 days a week for childcare. And the other 2 days a week, they can come into the office. And you'll have a lot of employers who are unwilling to be that flexible because they require everyone to come in Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And so if you have a government which encourages that policy and an employer that listens, then that recent mother will have a harder time finding a job, right? And so I find that messaging quite patronizing. I think fundamentally what we've learned is that autonomy, optionality, and flexibility about where we work, as long as the work is getting done, is the best for the economy, it's best for employers, and it's best for employees.